So it is day 13 of the ongoing war between the State of Israel in the Gaza Strip, where it claims that it is going after Hamas. The American President Joe Biden, remember, wrapped up his wartime visit to the State of Israel on Wednesday after little more than voicing unequivocal support. But the question that a lot of people are asking is, what did the American president in fact achieve in his trip to West Asia? In his nearly 8-hour-long visit to the country, President Biden managed to ensure that there was some kind of limited humanitarian aid that is allowed into the Gaza Strip from Egypt, and that Israel would agree to this. But the question is, can the leader of the world's most powerful nation, the nation that is backing Israel to the hilt, claim just this one concession as his achievement? He's also urged the Israelis not to allow rage to take over, as they seem to be fighting against Hamas, while telling them to follow the laws of war. A major concern ahead of the US president remains as to how to prevent the Iran-backed Hezbollah from jumping into the war scenario. According to reports, the Biden administration has privately been urging Israel not to launch a military campaign against Hezbollah. Washington is trying to keep the current war from spreading beyond the Gaza Strip. The United States recognizes that after the shock of the Hamas onslaught on the 7th of October, Israel needs to respond to the increased targeting of its northern borders by Hezbollah. But as the Lebanese faction continues to attack Israel, there are fears that Israel could initiate a military assault on Hezbollah. The United States, however, has cautioned the State of Israel on this matter, stressing that an IDF mistake in Lebanon could spark a much larger war in the region. Keeping the war confined to Gaza is a key American and an Israeli priority. This is what the Americans and the Israelis claim. But on the ground, one needs to read carefully as to what is unfolding there. Israel has even sought aid from the United States of America. According to reports, Israel is now asking for $10 billion from the American exchequer to carry on fighting against Hamas in the Gaza Strip, for more bombs to be dropped there. Before flying home after his brief visit to Tel Aviv, President Biden said that he would ask the Congress for unprecedented aid to boost Israel in its fight against Hamas. Now, aid that is expected to be folded into a massive $100 billion package in the Congress. This is all for the American war effort, for the State of Israel, for Ukraine, and also for Taiwan. This will be in addition to $3.8 billion per year that America already sends to the State of Israel. With more aid imminent for Israel, a senior U.S. State Department official, Josh Paul, has resigned from his position, criticizing the Biden administration's response to the situation in West Asia. Is criticized on moral grounds, protesting against the Biden administration's decision to continue sending weapons and ammunition that is being used by the State of Israel in dropping bombs on the Palestinian territory of Gaza. Paul has said that the Biden administration's blind support for one side is leading to policy decisions that are short-sighted, destructive, unjust, and contrary to the very values that the United States of America publicly espouses. And we earlier spoke with Professor Susanna Heschel. She joined us live from New Hampshire. She's in fact a distinguished professor at the Dartmouth College. Listen to what she had to say on this matter.
It's an enormous dilemma involving many countries, so I'm not sure I can encapsulate it briefly. But I do believe that President Biden's strategy is to win support and trust from Israel and from its very battered Prime Minister Netanyahu, in order to then exert some control over the decisions, military decisions, that Israel makes in the coming weeks regarding both Gaza and Lebanon. In other words, he wants to win the trust of Netanyahu in order to then restrain him as much as possible. You asked about Lebanon as well. Lebanon has been suffering terribly for a long time, as you know, and ever since the terrible explosion in the port, there's been an exodus of some of the finest people from Lebanon, professionals, academics, and so forth. And the government almost doesn't exist. There is no proper infrastructure, for instance, of electricity So the concern would be that Lebanon will fully collapse. That would be a grave concern and result also in a terrible loss of life and also the creation of possibly hundreds of thousands of refugees. So that's the situation as I see it. I would like Israel to be restrained in its response to these attacks. The most important issue on the table is finding those hostages, over 200, finding them quickly and bringing them home.
And also on this broadcast, we're being joined in by our correspondent Susan Tehrani. She's joining us live from New York. Now, Susan, the big question that a lot of people at this moment want to know is what is Joe Biden's strategy at this moment in ensuring that the war does not spill beyond the borders of the Gaza Strip. When the American president, in fact, traveled to West Asia, a lot of people were hoping that he could perhaps try and get some kind of a ceasefire in place. That has not happened. What the American president managed to get was a concession to allow about 20 trucks of humanitarian aid through the Rafah border crossing into the Gaza Strip. That could happen tomorrow. We still need to wait and watch for. But at this moment, what is Joe Biden's strategy in dealing with this crisis?
So the issue of a ceasefire is not part of the Biden administration's policy at this point because it's dealing with a rogue element like Hamas, Israel is, and the United States perhaps may hope to find some kind of negotiated settlement a little later down the line, because if President Biden went for a ceasefire, then that would contradict with America's stance of Israel having the right to defend itself. So right now, it's undoubtedly extremely important that President Biden diplomatically is able to work across multiple theaters. But I think the main question right now arises when many Arab leaders are wondering, because the Biden administration in the very beginning had this policy of retreat from the Middle East to focus on other regions like the Indo-Pacific, notably its competition with China, then how much do these Arab leaders in the region trust the Biden administration in coming in and forming some kind of alliance to support Israel against Hamas? So that's going to be very difficult. I think the Biden administration's strategy right now is to do all it can to get that humanitarian access in on the one hand, and on the other hand, keep the American public on board with what Israel is expected to do in Gaza and America's support, notably financially.
Absolutely, indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Susan Tehrani, for joining us and getting us those details there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.